Guitar tips, just the tips, just for you. Guitar tips. Hello and welcome to Guitar Tips. Guitar Tips Pro. My name is Adam Levy, and this is my weekly video blog series thing that I do. How are you doing, tippers? Well, let's see. In this week's tip, I want to tie together a few threads from the recent and not so recent past. So last week's tip was called To Slur with Love. And what it is, and if you haven't seen it, you should go back and watch that. It's about using hammer-ons and pull-offs and slides to really make the guitar sing and really develop a sense of flowing melodic energy on the guitar, so that everything doesn't sound like, a tap dancing convention or something like that. So that's what that's about. And then I've been thinking about that and also about a tip I did a while ago called As In To Swing, where I talk about using slurs on the offbeats. So in other words, like let's say we're going to play a C minor pentatonic scale. Instead of going like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and if we're trying to get like a jazzy feel, you'd go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and actually that'd be even better. So you're doing any kind of slur that you can when you go from an and to a whole number. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, I guess. Okay, but you get the idea. It just, I don't know why that feels jazzier and shufflier and swingier, but it does. So if you're trying to cultivate a sense of swing, you don't want to just slur, but you want to specifically slur on the offbeats, and that's something you'd have to practice until it's, under your fingers and in both hands, really. So, so that's two threads. That's As In To Swing and To Slur with Love. And then I wanted to tie that together with a third thread, which is the Don't Stop tip. That was tip number 120 from my original Guitar Tips series. At the end of that tip, I play 4 choruses, or 4 times through the form of All the Things You Are, which is a 36 measure form. So I play, whatever 4 times 36 is. And it was just improvised, but what I was trying to do in that performance, improvised performance, was play as much as I could, play non-stop eighth notes. The tip is called Don't Stop. And I went back and looked at it recently, and I noticed that there's lots of slurs in it. So if you haven't seen Don't Stop, and you haven't seen As In To Swing, and maybe you haven't even seen To Slur with Love, you might want to go back and watch those. This week's tip will make a lot more sense if you've seen those and if you've seen them recently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually play again. I had some help with this. My student Nico Ko transcribed all 4 choruses. Thank you, Nico. Awesome job. So now I'm looking at a little chart here, and I'm going to play the first chorus only, 36 measures. Maybe in some later tip I'll play more, but I'm going to play it. I'm also going to analyze it and talk about it. And if I take 36 measures times 4 and play it and talk about it, this is going to be an epic tip. And that's not really what guitar tips are. They're meant to be fairly, you know, not epic. Maybe on a good day anyway, maybe conceptually epic, but not epic in real time. So, okay. And as we go through this, you'll see there's lots of slurring, and mostly slurring on the offbeats. The first 4 bars, not a lot of slurring, but it starts to get into it as it goes along. And so I'm going to start, we'll do this phrase by phrase. So this is the first 8 bars. And if you don't know all the things you are, it's a bar of F minor 7, bar of B flat minor 7, bar of E flat 7, bar of A flat major 7, bar of D flat major 7, and then 2, 5, D minor 7, G7 to C major 7 for 2 bars. So I'm just going to play that much. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to start on bar 5. This is the D flat major 7. 3, 4. 3, 4. Why is that so weird? 3, 4. That's why. So I'm just going to try and analyze this as if it weren't my own solo and just look at it as music. So on the F minor 7, this is what I start with. So I'm not starting on the root, I'm starting on the 3rd, which is a chord tone. And I play this really simple sing-songy. And then a little lower neighbor, chromatic lower neighbor. And then for B flat minor 7, instead of going to the chord tone immediately, that will be the 3rd of B flat minor 7, I surround it. So I take 4 notes before I ever get there. I'm trying to get to here, and I go lower neighbor, upper neighbor. This is, so half step below, whole step above, and come back down to it. And that's against B flat minor 7. So I am on the 3rd there, and I play this, which is not that dissimilar from the theme in the first bar. So, and then I do kind of just a typical jazz-ism on E flat 7. Again, I want to get to this chord tone, this 3rd, and I go upper neighbor, whole step down. So just to clarify, lower neighbors are often, not always, but often are chromatic. That means 1 half step below the note you're going to. And upper neighbors are often, but not always, diatonic. So on an E flat 7 chord, I want to get to G. So I start with this note, which is a half step above the 3rd. Not because it's a chromatic leading tone there, but because it's if you're playing an E flat 7 and you think about the scale that would go there. So that's just the upper neighbor within the scale. There goes the garbage truck. Hey, garbage truck, thank you. So a scale tone above, and then you can, from below, I've gone 2 chromatic steps, and then I climb back up. So, and then I do the same kind of climb from 2 to 3, and then 1 to 2, and climb back down. And then on the A flat chord, I'm on an E flat. So here's the whole thing up to there. 3, 4. Oh, play along. If you've got your guitar in hand, play a F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. All this stuff will, I think, make more sense when you hear it in context. 3, 4. So I end that phrase with a little variation on where I started it in the first measure. So pretty thematic. Bar 5, D flat major 7, 2, 3, 4. So now we're starting to get into some slur territory. So on D flat major 7, I play so really just kind of scalar stuff with a little connecting tone. And then on D minor 7, I go, which is so D minor 7, 3, 4. So it's very chromatic. And then on the C major 7 here, I go. So really going for those offbeat slurs, 3, 4. And you could call that the bebop scale. The bebop major scale has a connector between 6 and 5. So that way, with that connector, you get chord tones on all the strong beats. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So 7, 6, 5, 3, 1, and then this is bar 8. That's just a C arpeggio. Hi, Tempura. You like jazz, don't you? You like neighbor tones? No, he doesn't like neighbor tones. Oh, a little bit he likes them. Okay. Well, then you can help me with this. So, by way of analysis, I want to really focus more on the phrasing and the slurring than the scale stuff. But as you know, as a kind of side note, I'm basically mostly looking to hit chord tones on strong beats, 1 and 3 if I can. So hitting the root, 3rd, 5th, or 7th on beats 1 or 3. That's kind of a convention of chord tones, is that you try and hit the strong chord tones. Really, 3 and 7 are your big targets. If you can hit the 3rd or the 7th of the chord, those are the very defining chord tones. If you can hit those on beats 1 and or 3, you're really setting up the chord. And whatever you do in between is a little bit more, it just kind of passes through, really. So try that. If you can, record yourself playing that 8-bar progression and loop it a few times so that you can play through it and you don't have to keep rewinding. So maybe play through that 8 bars, 5 times, 8 times, and really focus on those things. Slur on the offbeats, hit, thirds of chords or sevenths of chords on beats 1 and 3, and try to keep some perpetual motion going. You may not want to have perpetual motion going all the time, but this is really just good target practice. That's what it is. And you can play as slow as you like. Slow the metronome down so that you can actually do this. If you can't do it, you're not really learning anything. You're just panicking. So that's not so great. Tempura never panics, do you, buddy? No, he does not. So if you're watching this on my Guitar Tips YouTube channel, I'm going to stop here and just say that this would be I think plenty of good material to work on. Go back and review last week's tip and don't stop, and as in to swing. And even if you're not a jazz-minded player, you could still apply this. Even if you play rock or bluegrass or funk, or I don't know what you're playing, but slurs can be part of it. Swinging can be part of it. Have you ever heard of this guitar player, Eddie Van Halen? It's kind of a big deal in the 80s. And lots of swinging, lots of slurring, and, it's not jazz, but swings like crazy. So that's a good kind of thing to think about. Or jeepers, Norman Blake, this flat picker. People might say he's in the bluegrass world. I don't know if that's exactly his world, but he's a flat picker. Plays a big old dreadnought guitar. Swings like crazy. Man, if you haven't checked out Norman Blake, please go check out Norman Blake. So anyway, just to say that whether you like, actual jazz or not, this kind of feeling is something that you can bring into whatever you're doing. So there you go. Have fun with it, and stay tuned, and take good care.